right here on our right. We're back at Wolf Point, 333 West Wacker on our right. It was designed with the idea of contextualism in mind. So contextualism in architecture essentially means that rather than have an environment manipulate itself to a building should manipulate itself to an environment. So the same way we see that gentle curve in the facade of the Chicago, in the gentle curve in the Chicago River, we see that gentle curve in the facade of 333 West Wacker. Contextualism is repeated on the opposite side when that building kind of comes to a point, like a right angle. An architect from the architecture firm Cohen, Betterson and Fox was on our tour one day. You don't want to get your facts wrong when one of the principal designers of that building is in your audience. He told one of our tour guides that they got the inspiration for the color and shape of that building from a bottle of Perrier that was on somebody's desk. 225 West Wacker is the building with the American flag sticking out from its base. All the way at the very top of that building, you guys will see a little miniature bridge holding those two exterior columns together. Dark gray panels run down the middle of that building. Those panels have rivets on them. Those rivets are made to look like the rivets on the sides of Chicago's bridges. We have 88 bridges in Chicago. 2 of them are double-decked bascule trunnion bridges, which means they open and close in a seesaw motion, and they have 2 levels for both cars as well as pedestrians. All of the bridges that we've gone under today can open and close in under a minute, although it usually takes a little longer than that. They split right down the middle where these 2 sets of lights are. They open almost completely and then they close back down. Originally, these bridges operated by maritime law. Maritime law means that any vessel traveling by water has right of way. So they would have to stop traffic on either sides of these bridges and allow for them to open and close for even one sailboat with a particularly high mast. As you can imagine, in the 1950s, when more Americans started to own cars, operating on maritime law, kind of a headache. So they switched the operation of the bridges. They now only open and close twice a week, on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and only for fleets of 5 boats or more. Originally, also, all of these bridge houses needed to be tended 24/7 by a bridge tender. So you guys are seeing these houses on the corners of the bridges. If you take a look at them as we're going down the river, each and every set of them is different from the other. So there are no 2 sets of bridge houses that are designed the same way. They are part of the 1909 Burnham Plan for Chicago. Daniel Burnham, our city planner, thought that these bridge houses should reflect the architectural diversity of Chicago. All the way in front of us and on our right, you guys will see a green building with a gold top. So if you guys just look straight ahead, you'll see the Hotel 71, and then just next to it, you guys will see a green building with a very bright gold top. This is the Carbon and Carbide building. It's the former Hard Rock It's the former Carbon and Carbide building. Today it's the Hard Rock Hotel. It was designed by the son of our city planner, Daniel Burnham Jr. When he was designing that building, he was popping some champagne bottles open with his friends. He made the top of that building look like a champagne bottle that's just been uncorked with bubbles rippling down the side of it. The top of that building is actual 24-karat gold leaf as a nod to the very decadent Roaring 20s. This 2-level road that we've been traveling down for quite some time runs the curve of the Chicago River, and it's called Wacker Drive. Wacker Drive is 2 levels so that all of the trucks making deliveries or picking up garbage run on this bottom level. And then this top level is freed from not so many double parked trucks and less traffic. If you're not familiar with Wacker Drive, stay off of it. That's because in Chicago we have a North Wacker Drive, a South Wacker Drive, an East Wacker Drive, a West Wacker Drive, an Upper Wacker Drive, a Lower Wacker Drive, and a Lower Wacker Drive. Next to us is the Vietnam Memorial. The Vietnam Memorial is the second largest Vietnam memorial, second only to the one in our nation's capital. Directly above the Vietnam Memorial, you'll see the Jewelers Building. The Jewelers Building has 4 dome shapes on either 4 corners and 1 very tall dome shape at the top. There was a bar called the Stratosphere up there in that top dome shape during a time known as Prohibition, and that was Al Capone's favorite place to hang out when he was in Chicago. The Jewelers Building was also equipped with a giant elevator. You could drive your car into the Jewelers Building and then access whatever floor you needed. Those jewelers could avoid those rough Chicago streets at that time. They didn't have to unpack their jewels and walk on those, at that time, very dangerous sidewalks. Connected to the Hotel 71 is Mather Tower. Mather Tower is the skinniest example of a skyscraper we see here on the Chicago River. Mather Tower stood a little taller than it does today for many years until they deemed the very tippy top of Mather Tower to be structurally unsound. They didn't think that that top part had enough weight on either side of it holding it up. They were worried that if that tower hit some bad weather, it would run the risk of collapsing down onto the street. So they had to take the top of Mather Tower off by helicopter. They placed it onto a barge in the Chicago River. They sliced off the bottom 4 stories of Mather Tower, and then they placed the rest of Mather Tower back on top of the building by helicopter. They did all of this amazingly without a single mistake, preserving the structural integrity of Mather Tower for years to come. Reddish-brown building with a Hyatt sign in front of it is the Hyatt Regency, Chicago's largest hotel with 2,091 rooms inside of it. Behind the Hyatt Regency, you'll see a Louisiana modernist-looking building, and then behind that building, you'll see what looks like a needle sticking out from the very top. That needle is part of 2 Prudential Plaza. We in Chicago call that 2 Pru. We're going to get a great up and down look at 2 Pru in just a second. It has kind of a blue and silver checkered pattern going down the side of it. If 2 Prudential Plaza looks familiar in just a second, it's because it was modeled after the Chrysler Building in New York. And there it is. Right next door to 2 Prudential Plaza, its neighbor is the Aon Center, the building with the black vertical lines running down the side of it. The Aon Center is Chicago's 3rd tallest building, but it doesn't get a lot of cred because it doesn't have a lot going on for it aesthetically. When it opened, though, it was clad in a very beautiful, very expensive Italian marble. On a day like today, that Italian marble would have looked beautiful in the sunlight, but that Italian marble could not withstand rough Chicago winters. It began to chip off. People were worried that those shards of marble would hit pedestrians down below in the street. So they had all of that Italian marble taken off and replaced with North Carolinian granite. It cost about as much to build the Aon Center as it cost to replace all that marble with granite very shortly after the building opened. The triangle-shaped building that says Swiss Hotel at the very top is, of course, the Swiss Hotel. Behind that, you'll see the Aqua Building, which is the building with those Ripley balconies. Those Ripley balconies are actually called undulating balconies. The undulating balconies give that building the effect of water running down the side of it. We're very proud of the Aqua Building because at 80 stories tall, it's the tallest building in the world to be designed by an architecture firm headed by a woman. Her name is Jeannie Gang. She has her studios here in Chicago. This body of water that you guys have been traveling on is unlike any body of water you've ever traveled on before. And I can promise you that because the Chicago River is the only river to have been reversed and successfully stay reversed. Now you're probably wondering, Audrey, why would you need to reverse the flow of a river in the first place? That's because in the late 1800s, the Chicago River was disgusting. It was where people dumped all of their garbage, all of the waste from the industry, all of the hides from the Union stockyards. It was so polluted, parts of it would spontaneously catch on fire. There are pictures from the late 1800s of chickens walking across the surface of this river. That's how thickly polluted it was.